The council chamber of Zenith Prime stretched so wide that the far walls disappeared into shadow. Crystalline pillars rose like frozen lightning, and the ceiling showed the stars themselves alive and moving. Representatives from 847 species sat in their designated pods, breathing their preferred atmospheres, comfortable in their superiority. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the speaker's platform, a simple human woman in a plain gray suit. Around her, the aliens watched with expressions ranging from boredom to contempt. The Vraxian chancellor lounged in his elevated seat, his forearms draped casually over the armrests, his scaled face arranged in what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. "The motion passes," the chancellor announced, his voice booming through the chamber's translation systems. "The human trade routes through the Caecilian corridor will be transferred to House Vrax, effective immediately. As compensation, humanity will receive, let me see, yes, mining rights to 3 asteroids in the outer reach." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Thexians clicked their mandibles in their version of chuckling. The Kalashi delegates whispered to each other behind their fans, making no effort to hide their mockery. Chen Wei waited for the laughter to fade. She had stood in this chamber for 12 years, watching her people be dismissed, watching their contributions be minimized, watching their protests be ignored. Today would be different, though these fools did not know it yet. "Ambassador Chen," the chancellor said, waving one hand dismissively. "If you wish to lodge another protest, please be brief. We have important matters to discuss after this minor business concludes." Minor business. Human ships had spent 80 years building those trade routes, mapping the gravitational eddies, establishing the relay stations, negotiating with local populations. Thousands of human lives invested in creating safe passage for all council species, and now it was being handed to a Vraxian noble house as a party favor. "I do not wish to lodge a protest, Chancellor," Chen said calmly. The Chancellor's eye ridges rose. "Oh, then you accept the council's wisdom?" "No," Chen said. "I wish to deliver a formal notice." She pulled a small data crystal from her pocket and held it up. The gesture was simple, but something in her tone made the nearer delegates lean forward in their pods. "This crystal contains humanity's official withdrawal from the Galaxy Council, effective immediately. All human personnel will be evacuated from Council space within 72 hours. All treaties, agreements, and mutual defense pacts are hereby dissolved. We came to this council 300 years ago seeking fellowship among the stars. We offered our labor, our knowledge, our friendship. In return, we have been treated as junior members at best, as servants at worst." The chamber fell silent. The Chancellor's amusement vanished, replaced by confusion and then anger. "You cannot be serious," he said. "This is another human emotional outburst. You will regret this hasty decision." Chen placed the data crystal on the speaker's platform. "The decision was not hasty, Chancellor. It has been under consideration for 50 years. We are done begging for respect we will never receive. Humanity withdraws. We wish the Council well in its future endeavors." She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the chamber erupted into noise. Delegates shouted questions, accusations, demands. The Chancellor's voice rose above them all. "Ambassador Chen, you will return to this platform. I demand—" Chen did not stop walking. She did not look back. The doors of the chamber sealed behind her with a soft hiss. In the station's observation deck, Commander Marcus Torres watched the stars and waited for his orders. His communicator chimed. "Torres here." "It's done, Marcus." Chen's voice came through, tired but satisfied. "Begin the evacuation." "Understood. All ships are standing by." Throughout Zenith Prime, throughout every council station, across hundreds of worlds, humans received the same message at the same moment. The order they had been told might never come. The order many had hoped would never come. But an order they had prepared for nonetheless. Pack essential belongings only. Report to designated evacuation points. Departure in 72 hours. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was in the middle of surgery when her communicator vibrated. The Kalashi patient on her table needed 3 more hours of delicate work to repair his damaged respiratory system. She ignored the device and kept working. The message could wait. The patient could not. In the engineering section, Thomas Wright was elbow-deep in a plasma conduit, trying to fix a malfunction in the station's water recycling system. The conduit was a human design, installed by human engineers, maintained by human technicians. No one else understood the modifications that made it 40% more efficient than the original Thexian version. He pulled himself out, read his communicator, and sighed. He looked at the conduit, then at his tools, then at the message again. He packed his tools carefully and walked away, leaving the conduit open and the malfunction unfixed. In the council archives, Jennifer Park had spent 5 years cataloging historical documents. She read the message, looked at the Vraxian archivists who had never learned her name despite working alongside her for half a decade, and quietly logged out of all her systems. She encrypted her personal notes, backed up her work to humanity's private servers, and deleted her access credentials. The Vraxian archivist noticed her leaving. "Park, where are you going?" "The Caecilian War documents still need processing." "I'm going home," Jennifer said. "But you can't just leave in the middle of a project." Jennifer paused at the door. "Watch me." By the end of the first day, the council leadership realized something was wrong. Humans were actually leaving. Not making threats, not staging a protest, actually packing and departing. "This is absurd," the Chancellor's aide insisted. "They're bluffing. They need us more than we need them." But the humans kept leaving. On the second day, small problems began appearing. A medical emergency in Section 7 found no doctors available. The human medical staff had departed. A malfunction in the food distribution system went unfixed because the human logistics coordinators were gone. Translation glitches appeared in official documents because the humans who maintained the linguistic databases were no longer at their stations. "These are minor inconveniences," the Chancellor assured his staff. "The other species will handle it." But the other species didn't know how to handle it. They had let humans manage these tasks for so long that they had forgotten how, or had never learned at all. On the third day, the last human ships undocked from Zenith Prime. Commander Torres stood on the bridge of the transport vessel Endeavour, watching the massive station shrink in the view screen. "All ships report ready for jump to human space." "Commander," his navigator said. "Take us home," Torres ordered. The human fleet jumped as one, vanishing into the tunnel of faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Zenith Prime's lights flickered for the first time in 3 centuries. The power grid, optimized and maintained by human engineers, began to show its age. In the council chamber, the Chancellor sat alone in his elevated seat, staring at the data crystal Chen had left behind. He had not bothered to play it yet, assuming it contained nothing but emotional human rhetoric. Finally, he inserted it into his terminal. Chen's face appeared, recorded earlier that day. "To the Galaxy Council," she said, "this is not goodbye forever. It is goodbye until you learn what we learned 300 years ago, that civilization requires contribution, not just consumption. That respect is earned through how you treat the least powerful among you, that the quiet ones doing the unremarkable work are often the most essential. You never knew our worth because you never bothered to look. Now you will learn. We hope it is not a lesson that costs you everything. But that is no longer our concern. Humanity will endure. Will you?" The message ended. The Chancellor sat in the darkness of the empty chamber and felt, for the first time in his long life, something very much like fear. Week 1 after the human departure began quietly. Too quietly. Station Administrator Velk, a Thexian with 19 years of experience managing Zenith Prime, noticed the silence first. The usual background hum of complaints, maintenance requests, and routine problems had changed. Not stopped. Problems never stopped on a station housing 2 million beings, but changed in character. "Administrator," his assistant said, mandibles clicking nervously. "The medical bay in Section 12 reports they cannot treat Counselor Prax. The equipment is malfunctioning." "Send a technician," Velk said absently, reviewing supply manifests. "We did, sir. The technician says the equipment is too complex. It was modified by human doctors. He doesn't understand the modifications." Velk looked up from his work. "What do you mean he doesn't understand?" "He's a medical technician, yes, sir. But the humans, they modified almost all the medical equipment, made it better, they said, more efficient. The technicians never learned how they did it. The humans always fix things themselves." A cold feeling crept into Velk's thorax. "Contact the human medical staff. They've all gone, sir." "Every one of them. Counselor Prax died 3 hours later." The medical equipment that could have saved him sat useless in the bay. its human-designed improvements now a locked puzzle no one could solve. That same day, a cargo vessel arrived at Zenith Prime with food shipments for the residential sectors. The automated docking system brought it in perfectly, as always. But then the cargo sat in the bay, and sat, and sat. "Why hasn't the cargo been distributed?" Velk demanded. His logistics officer spread his wing flaps in distress. "The distribution system is offline, Administrator. We're trying to access it manually, but the interface has changed. The humans reorganized it last year. Made it more efficient, they said. We don't know where they stored the new protocols. Figure it out." It took them 4 days to figure it out. 4 days of 2 million hungry residents wondering why their food was late. By the time they solved the problem, 3 more shipments had arrived, creating a backlog that took another week to clear. In the council chambers, the delegates gathered for their weekly session. The attendance was poor. Many members were dealing with crises in their home territories. Chancellor Vrax called the meeting to order, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "Let us begin with reports from—" The translation system screeched with feedback, rendering half the chamber unable to understand anything. Technicians rushed in, working frantically on the equipment. "The linguistic algorithms are degrading, Chancellor," the head technician reported. "The system was maintained by human specialists. We're trying to access the maintenance logs, but they're encrypted with protocols we don't recognize. Break the encryption." "We're trying, sir, but it could take months." The humans designed very sophisticated security. Ambassador Krell of Tortha watched this chaos with growing alarm. He was old for his species, over 2 centuries, and he remembered the council before humans joined. He also remembered when humans first arrived, eager, optimistic, offering to help wherever needed. Too eager, the other species had said. Suspiciously helpful. What do they want? What the humans wanted, it turned out, was simply to contribute. They took jobs others found boring. They fixed things that needed fixing. They noticed problems and solved them without being asked. Over 3 centuries they had woven themselves into the fabric of daily life so thoroughly that their absence now felt like missing organs. Krell activated his private communicator and called his aide. "Bring me a complete list of all positions held by humans across council space. Everything, from the most senior ambassadors to the lowest maintenance workers." The report arrived the next day. Krell read it in his quarters, his arm tentacles trembling as he turned page after page. Humans had held over 10,000 positions across council space. Not the prestigious roles. Those went to older, more established species. Humans worked in logistics, maintenance, medical support, technical services, education, food distribution, waste management, data analysis, security contracting, and 1,000 other essential but unglamorous fields. They had designed the efficiency improvements that kept Zenith Prime running smoothly. They had written the software that managed trade routes. They had trained peacekeeping forces. They had operated the linguistic systems that let 847 species communicate. They had optimized food distribution networks that prevented famines. They had maintained the ancient automated systems that other species had built millennia ago, and then forgotten how to service. And now they were gone. All of them. Krell brought the report to the Chancellor's office the next morning. "You need to see this," he said, placing the data tablet on Vrax's desk. The Chancellor glanced at it dismissively. "I'm busy, Krell. We have real problems to address." "This is the real problem." Krell's tentacles slapped the desk, something he had never done before in all his years of diplomatic service. "Read it," Vrax read. His scales paled from deep green to sickly yellow as he progressed through the document. This cannot be accurate. I had 3 independent teams verify it. It's accurate. But if this is true, then humans were essential, Krell finished. They were absolutely essential. We just never noticed because they made everything work so smoothly. We thought our civilization ran itself. It didn't. Humans ran it. Reports flooded in from across council space, each more alarming than the last. The Vraxian noble house that had seized the human trade routes found their first convoy attacked by pirates. The convoy security had always been provided by human contractors. Without them, the ships were easy prey. The Kalashi Imperium discovered that their medical research databases were inaccessible. Human researchers had designed the indexing system. Without them, thousands of years of medical knowledge sat locked away, useless. The Thexian banking collective watched in horror as their financial systems began making calculation errors. Minor at first, but growing. The humans had written the algorithms that managed interstellar currency exchange rates. The base Thexian code still worked, but the efficiency improvements, the ones that had made the Thexians wealthy, those were failing. On the fourth station in the outer reach, the life support system began cycling incorrectly. Air became stale in some sections, too thin in others. The chief engineer traced the problem to modifications made by human specialists 50 years ago. Modifications that had improved efficiency by 30%, but that no one else understood. Can we revert to the old system? The station master asked desperately. The old system was dismantled for parts decades ago. We're running on human-modified equipment. If we can't fix it properly, we'll have to evacuate the station. They evacuated 3 days later. 50,000 beings displaced because no one knew how to maintain what humans had built. Administrator Velk sat in his office on Zenith Prime, staring at the growing list of system failures. His assistant entered quietly. "Sir, there's a delegation from the residential sectors. They're demanding to know when services will be restored to normal. Tell them we're working on it." "Sir, I've been telling them that for 2 weeks. They're getting angry." Velk had no answer. How could he explain that normal had depended on 3,000 humans who had worked quietly in the background, fixing problems before they became crises, optimizing systems that no one else had bothered to maintain? That evening, Velk did something he had never done before. He tried to contact human space directly, using the diplomatic channels that technically still existed. The response was automated and cold. All diplomatic communications from council space are being held pending policy review. Estimated response time, none. Thank you for your inquiry. He tried 7 more times over the next 3 days. Same response. Humanity had not just left physically. They had closed their doors and their ears. On his terminal, Velk pulled up the archived footage of Ambassador Chen's final speech to the council. He had watched it being dismissed, had even smiled at the Chancellor's mockery. Now he watched it again, paying attention this time. Chen's face was calm, sad even, but not angry. That's what struck him now. She hadn't been making threats or seeking revenge. She had simply been stating facts. Facts they were all now learning the hard way. "We are done begging for respect we will never receive," her recorded voice said. Velk paused the playback and sat in the darkness of his office. Across the station, systems continued their slow degradation. The lights flickered just for a moment, but it was enough. They had taken humans for granted, treated them as lesser, assigned them the work that needed doing but carried no prestige. And the humans had done that work brilliantly, never complaining, just quietly keeping everything running until they stopped. The Council's golden age, Velk realized with horror, had been built on a foundation they never bothered to look at. Now that foundation was gone and the whole structure was starting to crumble. And humanity, wherever they were now, was not coming to help fix it. Month 2 brought the cascade. What had started as inconveniences became emergencies. What were emergencies became disasters. The systems that ran galactic civilization, neglected for so long because humans had maintained them so well, began to fail in earnest. The Thexian banking collective collapsed on a Tuesday morning. It started with a minor error in currency conversion rates between the Thexian credit and the Vraxian trade unit. A difference of 0.003%, barely noticeable. But that tiny error rippled through 17,000 financial transactions per second. Within hours, the error compounded into millions of credits appearing and disappearing randomly from accounts. The Thexian financial minister ordered an immediate audit. His staff worked for 36 hours straight and came back with devastating news. "Minister, the entire modern banking system was built on human-designed algorithms. We still have the original Thexian code from 800 years ago, but it's primitive. It could only handle a fraction of current transaction volumes. The humans upgraded everything gradually over 3 centuries, made it faster, more secure, more reliable. We never bothered to learn how they did it. Bring in the best Thexian programmers." They brought in the best. The programmers stared at the human code like archaeologists examining alien ruins. It was efficient, elegant, and completely beyond their understanding. The humans had written it in layers, each one building on the last, each one requiring knowledge of what came before. "This will take years to decode," the head programmer reported. "Maybe decades." The Thexian economy, the most powerful in council space, ground to a halt. Trade stopped. Savings vanished into computational limbo. 3. Thexian colony worlds rioted when their citizens couldn't access their money for basic food and medicine. The Kalashi Imperium faced a different nightmare. A plague emerged on one of their agricultural worlds. Nothing exotic, just a mutation of common bacteria. Normally, it would have been a minor problem. The medical teams would identify it, synthesize a treatment, and distribute it within days. But the medical database wouldn't cooperate. The Kalashi doctors could see that treatments existed in the system. They could see the research papers, but they couldn't access the actual formulas. The database had been reorganized by human medical researchers into a sophisticated system that cross-referenced symptoms, treatments, and outcomes in ways that made searching incredibly efficient. Without the humans who had designed it, the Kalashi doctors couldn't figure out the navigation system. They tried for 3 days while the plague spread. "Just search the old way," the Imperatrix commanded. "The old system was replaced 40 years ago, Your Majesty. The data is all still there, but it's organized according to human medical logic. We're trying to access it using Kalashi medical categories. It's like asking someone to find books in a library where all the titles are written in a language they can't read." By the time they found a workaround, 17,000 Kalashi had died. It was the worst plague disaster in their modern history. All the knowledge to stop it had been right there, locked away behind a system they couldn't operate. The Imperatrix, who had laughed so loudly at human withdrawal, now wept in her private chambers. Throughout council space, the pattern repeated. Systems failed. Knowledge became inaccessible. Services stopped. But the worst problem was one no one had anticipated. The peacekeepers were gone. For 2 centuries, humans had provided the majority of security contractors, peacekeeping forces, and neutral mediators in council space. They had no ancient tribal conflicts with other species. They had no territorial ambitions that made others suspicious. They just did the job professionally and went home. With them gone, old hatreds came creeping back. The Vraxian Empire and the Kalashi Imperium had fought wars centuries ago, before the Council existed. Those wars had ended, but the resentment never quite disappeared. It had just been buried under layers of civilization and prosperity. Now, with the Kalashi weakened by plague and the Vraxians economically desperate from the trade route failures, someone made a stupid decision. A Vraxian battle fleet crossed into Kalashi territory, claiming they were pursuing pirates. The Kalashi saw an invasion force. Both sides were right and both were wrong, but without human mediators there was no one to defuse the situation. Shots were fired. A Kalashi station was damaged. The Vraxians claimed it was defensive. The Kalashi called it an act of war. Within a week, 2 of the Council's most powerful members were in open conflict. Ambassador Krell watched the reports with his heart sinking. He had tried to warn them. He had shown them the data. But pride was a powerful thing, and the Council was nothing if not proud. He called for an emergency session. Attendance was the worst he had ever seen. Half the delegations were dealing with crises at home. The other half were too embarrassed to show their faces. Chancellor Vrax looked like he had aged decades in mere weeks. His scales were dull, his movements slow. "We must address the human situation," Krell said, his voice echoing in the half-empty chamber. "What situation?" a Delcani delegate asked. They left. "That's their choice, and it's killing us." Krell slammed his tentacle on the podium. "In 2 months, we've had an economic collapse, a plague outbreak, 2 station evacuations, countless system failures, and now a war. All because humans aren't here to prevent it." "You give them too much credit," the Delcani said. Krell activated the central display. Numbers and charts filled the air, statistics he had spent weeks compiling. Human-maintained trade routes, 93% more efficient than routes they didn't manage. Human-optimized medical systems, saved an estimated 700 million lives over the past century. Human-designed security protocols, reduced piracy by 87%. Human linguistic systems, enabled communications between species that had never been able to talk before. Human food distribution networks, prevented 14 major famines. Should I continue? The chamber was silent. "We didn't just lose workers," Krell continued. "We lost the foundation of our entire civilization. And we lost it because we were too proud to acknowledge their value. Chancellor Vrax finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What would you have us do, Krill? Apologize. Beg them to return. Offer them anything. They won't come, a voice said from the back. It was Administrator Velk, attending his first council session. I've been trying to contact them for weeks. They're not even accepting communications. Then we go there, Krell said. We send a delegation to human space. We explain the situation. They know the situation, Velk said quietly. They planned for it. Don't you see? This wasn't a hasty decision. Ambassador Chen said they had been considering withdrawal for 50 years. 50 years! They knew exactly what would happen when they left. They prepared for it. Probably warned us in ways we didn't listen to, and now they're watching us struggle with problems they solved centuries ago. The truth of it settled over the chamber like cold water. Someone in the back laughed bitterly. We called them primitive. We called them emotional. We mocked their need to fix things and help people. And all along, they were the only thing keeping our great civilization from falling apart. A Thexian delegate stood, mandibles clicking in distress. My homeworld is rationing food because our distribution networks don't work. My people are suffering. We need the humans back. My people are dying of plague, a Kalashi representative added. We have the cure in our databases. We just can't reach it. We need the humans back. My station is on backup power, another voice called. Life support is degrading. We need the humans back. The admissions came like a flood, species after species acknowledging what they had lost. Chancellor Vrax raised a hand for silence. Very well. We will send a delegation to human space. We will request negotiations. But we must understand they hold all the advantages now. They may refuse us. Or they may demand terms we find difficult. Then we accept their terms, Krell said firmly, because the alternative is watching our civilization collapse. The vote was taken. The delegation would leave within 2 days, led by Ambassador Krell himself. That night, Krell reviewed everything they knew about humanity's current status. It wasn't much. Human space had gone dark, no communications in, very little coming out. But there were whispers, rumors picked up by long-range sensors and scout ships. Human worlds were not in chaos. They were functioning normally, better than normally even. It seemed humanity was not suffering from the separation at all. That worried Krell more than anything. If humans were desperate, they could be negotiated with. If they were struggling, they might welcome a chance to reconcile. But if they were thriving, if they had truly moved on, then the Council wasn't just facing rejection. They were facing irrelevance. Krell looked at the star charts showing human territory. Somewhere out there, humanity was building something new, something that didn't need the Council at all. The question was whether the Council could build something worthy of asking humanity to return to. Krell feared he already knew the answer. Month 4. The Council delegation reached the borders of human space. Ambassador Krell stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Concord, watching the sensor displays with growing unease. 3 ships approached, sleek human vessels with designs he didn't recognize. New models, more advanced than what humans had flown 4 months ago. Unidentified vessel, you have entered human territorial space without authorization. A crisp voice came through the communication system. State your purpose. This is Ambassador Krell of Tortha, leading a council delegation. We request permission to enter human space for diplomatic discussions. There was a long pause. Stand by for escort. Do not deviate from the flight path we transmit. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. The human ships took formation around the Concord. They didn't point weapons, but the message was clear. Guests were tolerated barely. They flew for 3 days through human territory. Krell spent that time glued to the observation ports, watching the systems they passed. What he saw shook him. Human stations buzzed with activity. New construction everywhere, shipyards, habitats, research facilities. Trade ships moved in efficient patterns. Everything looked prosperous, organized, growing. This wasn't a civilization struggling after leaving the Council. This was a civilization unleashed. They're not suffering at all, Administrator Velk whispered beside him. No, Krell agreed. They're thriving. They were brought to humanity's capital world, Terra. The planet hung in space like a blue and white jewel. The orbital infrastructure around it was staggering. Dozens of stations, hundreds of ships. Countless smaller craft moving between them like schools of fish. The delegation was brought to a government complex on the surface. The humans were polite but distant. No warmth, no familiarity, just professional courtesy to foreign dignitaries. They were led to a conference room where 5 humans waited. None of them were Ambassador Chen. The leader was a younger woman with dark skin and sharp eyes. I am Commander Sarah Okonkwo, representing humanity in these discussions. Please sit. The delegation sat. Krell noticed the humans didn't offer refreshments or any of the usual diplomatic pleasantries. This would be business only. We appreciate you agreeing to meet with us, Krell began. We almost didn't, Okonkwo said bluntly. Many of our people argued there was no point, that the council made its feelings about humanity clear. But some believed in giving you a chance to speak. So here we are, speak. Krell had prepared a speech. Diplomatic language, careful phrasing, the kind of thing he had perfected over 2 centuries. But looking at Okonkwo's expression, he threw it away. We made a terrible mistake, he said simply. We treated your people poorly. We took advantage of your willingness to help. We dismissed your contributions and mocked your efforts. And now we're paying the price. Our civilization is collapsing without you. We need your help. We're here to beg you to return. Okonkwo's expression didn't change. Why should we? Because people are suffering. Billions of beings across council space are dealing with system failures, food shortages, medical crises. And how is that our responsibility? One of the other humans interrupted. We offered our help freely for 3 centuries. We were rejected, insulted, and exploited. We left, you wanted us gone. Now you have what you wanted. Velk spoke up, his voice shaking. I run Zenith Prime, ran I suppose. I'm here because my station is dying. Life support is failing. Power grids are degrading. 3 people died last week because medical equipment malfunctioned and we couldn't fix it. I came here to tell you that I was wrong. I was so wrong. I never appreciated what your people did. I never saw it. And now that I do see it, it's too late. Okonkwo's expression softened slightly. Administrator Velk, we know who you are. You were one of the better ones, actually. You at least tried to be fair when you could. But you're right. It is too late. Too late to go back to how things were. Then we'll change, Krell said desperately. We'll restructure the council. Give humanity equal representation. Better than equal. You're not listening, Okonkwo said firmly. It's not about representation in a system that fundamentally doesn't respect us. We don't want to be part of your council anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. But your people worked so hard to build connections with us. A Thexian delegate protested. You invested centuries in council relationships. We did, Okonkwo agreed. And we learned from that investment. We learned that we don't need you as much as you need us. We learned that there are other species in the galaxy. Species you never bothered to contact because they weren't powerful enough or prestigious enough. We're talking with them now, building new relationships. Better relationships, she activated a display. It showed star charts of regions beyond council space. Dozens of species humanity had made contact with. Trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. We're not alone out here, Okonkwo continued. We've been very busy these 4 months. Turns out lots of younger species are interested in learning from us. They appreciate what we offer. They treat us as equals. Krell felt his heart sink. This was worse than rejection. Humanity wasn't struggling without the council. They were building something better. What about the war? He asked quietly. The Vraxians and Kalashi are fighting. People are dying. Yes, Okonkwo said, her voice hardening. We've heard, tragic, but it's not our war. The council chose to handle its own security. Now it is. But you could stop it. You could mediate. You're good at that. We were good at that. We were good at a lot of things. Things you never acknowledged or appreciated. Okonkwo leaned forward. Do you know what Ambassador Chen's final report said? The one she filed before giving her withdrawal speech? Krell shook his head. She listed 47 warnings humanity had given the council over the past century. Warnings about system dependencies. Warnings about security vulnerabilities. Warnings about economic instabilities. Recommendations for cross-training. Suggestions for redundancy planning. All ignored. All dismissed as human worrying or human interfering. We tried to teach you how to maintain what we built. You refused to learn. That's not our failure. It's yours. The room fell silent. The truth of her words was undeniable. Finally, a Kalashi delegate spoke, his voice broken. Is there nothing we can do? My people are dying of a plague. The cure is in our own databases. We just can't access it. Please, I'm not asking for all of you to return. Just send a few medical researchers. Help us save our people. They're dying because of our leader's pride, but they don't deserve to die. Okonkwo's jaw tightened. She looked at her fellow delegates. A silent conversation happened in glances. One team, she said finally, will send one medical team to help with your plague crisis. Because you're right. The civilians don't deserve to suffer for their leader's failures. But understand this is humanitarian aid, not reconciliation. We're not coming back. Thank you, the Kalashi delegate whispered, tears streaming down his face. As for the rest of you, Okonkwo said, looking at each delegate in turn, you need to understand something. We're not angry. We're not seeking revenge. We're just done. We gave you 3 centuries. We gave you our labor, our innovation, our friendship, and you gave us contempt. We don't hate you. We're just completely indifferent now. You're not our problem anymore. Krell had one more card to play. He pulled out a data tablet. The council voted. We've agreed to accept any terms you set for return. Anything. Equal representation, reparations, institutional protections. We don't want your institutions, Okonkwo interrupted. We want to build our own, with species who actually want us there. But the council has 847 member species. We have resources, knowledge, connections, had. One of the human delegates corrected. Past tense. Your connections are fighting each other. Your resources are locked in systems you can't operate. Your knowledge is fragmented across databases you can't access. The council you're offering us doesn't exist anymore. We watched it collapse in 4 months. Okonkwo stood, signaling the meeting was ending. Here's what we'll offer. We'll send humanitarian aid teams to prevent civilian deaths, medical support for the plague, some emergency technicians for critical life support systems. Not because we owe you anything, but because it's the right thing to do. And what do you want in return? Krell asked. Nothing, Okonkwo said. We want nothing from you. That's the point you're still not getting. We don't need anything from the council anymore. We're fine on our own. Better than fine. She walked to the door, then paused. Ambassador Krell, you seem like a decent person. So I'll give you some advice. Go home. Fix your council if you can. Learn to maintain your own systems. Learn to value the people who do the unglamorous work. Become something worthy of respect. Maybe in 50 years, 100 years, we can talk again. But it will be as equals meeting equals, not as saviors and supplicants. The door closed behind the human delegates. The council representatives sat in stunned silence. They had come hoping to bring humanity home. Instead, they had learned that humanity had already found a new home. A better one, and they had done it without the council's help at all. Month 6. The humanitarian teams arrived. They came in small groups just as Commander Okonkwo had promised. Medical researchers to the Kalashi worlds, emergency technicians to failing stations, not armies of workers like before, just enough to prevent immediate deaths. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was among them, returning to Zenith Prime for the first time since she had left. Administrator Velk met her personally at the docking bay. Dr. Mitchell, he said, his mandibles clicking nervously. Thank you for coming. I know you have no reason to help us. I'm not here for you, Sarah said bluntly, shouldering her medical kit. I'm here for the patients who need care. Where's the critical list? Velk led her through the station. It looked different than she remembered. Dimmer. The walls needed cleaning. Equipment sat broken in corridors because no one knew how to fix it. The proud station she had left was now shabby, struggling. I tried to contact you, Velk said quietly as they walked. When you first left, I wanted to apologize. To say I never realized. I know, Sarah said. I got your messages. All 43 of them. You never responded. No, I was too angry. We all were. She stopped walking and looked at him. Do you know what it feels like to spend 12 years helping people, saving lives, improving systems, and never once hearing thank you? To know that everyone thinks you're just doing it for your own benefit somehow? To hear other species joke about human desperation to be useful? I'm sorry. I know you are now, when it hurts you personally. She started walking again. Show me the patients. The medical bay was overwhelmed. Dozens of cases that could have been handled easily with functioning equipment. Sarah looked at the machines she had once maintained, now silent and useless. This synthesizer, she said, pointing to one. I modified it myself. Made it 3 times more efficient. Took me 2 months. We tried to fix it, Velk said. We couldn't understand how you did it. That's because you never asked me to teach you. I offered. Multiple times. You said you were too busy with important work to learn maintenance. She powered up the machine, her fingers moving across controls from memory. It'll work now. For a while. But you need to learn how to maintain it. Will you teach us? That's not my job anymore. But I'll send instructions. Whether you read them is up to you. She worked for 16 hours straight, stabilizing patients, repairing equipment, training local staff on emergency procedures. Then she returned to her ship and left. No tearful goodbyes. No promises to return. Just professional service and departure. It was the same across council space. Human aid teams came, did the critical work, taught the absolute basics, and left. They were efficient and professional. They were also completely detached. The council delegates who had visited Terra returned to a civilization still in crisis, but now with a lifeline. The humanitarian aid prevented the worst disasters. Stations didn't lose life support. The Kalashi plague was contained. Critical systems were stabilized, but nothing was fixed. Not really. The council still couldn't operate most of their advanced systems. They just had enough help to prevent immediate collapse. Ambassador Krell called an emergency session of the full council. For the first time in months, attendance was nearly complete. Everyone wanted to hear what had happened on Terra. They're not coming back, Krell said without preamble. Not now. Probably not ever. We need to accept that and adapt. Chancellor Vrax, looking even older than before, leaned forward. What did they demand? Nothing. That's what you're not understanding. They demanded nothing because they don't need anything from us. They've moved on. He activated the display and showed the intelligence they had gathered. Maps of human space, reports from long-range sensors, intercepts of trade communications. Humanity has made contact with 43 species outside council space. They're building a new coalition. They're calling it the Partnership of Free Worlds. It's based on mutual respect, shared labor, and equal representation. Everything we failed to provide. The chamber erupted into noise. Delegates shouting questions, making accusations, proposing solutions. Krell waited for the chaos to subside. We have a choice, he said finally. We can continue as we are, struggling with systems we don't understand, fighting among ourselves, slowly declining. Or we can change, fundamentally change. Change how? The Thexian representative asked. We learn to do the work ourselves. We stop depending on others to maintain our civilization. We stop assigning status based on who has the oldest history or the biggest fleets. We start respecting contribution, not just power. That could take decades, someone protested. Yes, Krell agreed. It will take decades, maybe centuries. We let our infrastructure knowledge and technical skills decay because we relied on humans. Now we have to rebuild all of that from scratch. It will be hard. It will be humbling. But it's our only path forward. Chancellor Vrax stood slowly. I hereby resign my position as Chancellor of the Galaxy Council. Effective immediately. Shocked silence filled the chamber. My pride caused this crisis, Vrax continued. My dismissal of the humans. My refusal to see their value. I cannot lead us forward when I'm responsible for our decline. Someone else must take this burden. He looked directly at Krell. I nominate Ambassador Krell of Tortha as the new Chancellor. The vote took less than an hour. Krell became Chancellor with near unanimous support. His first act was to dismantle the system of senior and junior species. From this day forward, all species in the council have equal representation, he declared. Decisions will be made by majority vote, with no special privileges for older civilizations. We are starting over, and we're starting as equals. His second act was to establish the Technical Recovery Initiative, a massive program to train council species in maintaining their own systems. It would cost fortunes. It would take decades, but it was necessary. His third act was the hardest. He drafted a formal apology to humanity, to be entered into the permanent council records. To the human species, it read, we failed you. We took your contributions for granted. We dismissed your value. We treated you with contempt when you deserved respect. We are deeply sorry. You owe us nothing. We owe you everything. We hope that someday when we have become worthy of your regard, we might speak again as equals. Until then, we thank you for your centuries of service and we wish you well in all your endeavors. The apology was broadcast on all council channels. Humanity's response came 3 days later. It was brief, received and acknowledged. We appreciate the sentiment. We hope the Council finds its way forward. Humanity has no ill will toward any species. We simply choose to build our future elsewhere. Perhaps our paths will cross again under better circumstances. Until then, farewell and good luck. That was all. No anger, no triumph. Just polite distance. Years passed. The Council learned slowly and painfully to maintain its own civilization. Some systems had to be completely rebuilt from scratch when they couldn't figure out human modifications. Other systems were simplified, made less efficient but more understandable. The war between the Vraxians and Kalashi ended after 2 years, when both sides were too exhausted to continue. The treaty was negotiated by Torthan mediators, trained hastily in the diplomatic methods humans had once practiced. Trade recovered slowly. The economy stabilized, though it never reached the heights it had achieved with human optimization. That was fine. Sustainable was better than brilliant but fragile. Stations learned to operate with lower efficiency but greater self-sufficiency. It was a harder life than before, but also a more honest one. No more hidden dependencies. No more taking skilled labor for granted. Ambassador Krell, Chancellor Krell now served for 20 years before retiring. His successor continued the reforms, and the successor after that. 53 years after the human departure, Ambassador Chen Wei died peacefully on Terra, surrounded by her family. She was 127 years old and had never returned to Council space. The Council sent a formal message of condolence, acknowledging her service. Humanity thanked them politely. 80 years after the departure, the Council finally achieved something remarkable. They made first contact with a new species and treated them as equals from the very beginning. Not as junior members, not as servants, as full partners. It was a milestone that brought tears to the old delegates who remembered the dark days. 112 years after the departure, a human ship arrived at Zenith Prime. Not an official delegation, just a civilian cargo vessel. The captain met with Administrator Jessa, a young Thexian who had been born after the humans left. "We heard you're looking for technical consultants," the captain said. "Some of our engineers are interested in contract work. Fair pay, equal treatment, professional respect. Those are our terms." "Done," Jessa said immediately. "When can they start?" "Tomorrow. But understand, this is business. We're not joining the Council. We're not coming back. We're just offering our skills as equals to equals." "That's all we're asking for," Jessa said. The engineers came. They were good. They taught while they worked, and this time, the Council species learned. More human contractors followed. Then human companies. Then human trade ships. But humanity never rejoined the Council. Their partnership of free worlds had grown into something vibrant and successful. Why would they go back? Instead, the two civilizations learned to be neighbors. Trading partners. Sometimes allies.